Hello my friends, welcome back. In this video, I'll be making another Resin Ocean Bowl. This time, I will have the seashells on the outside of the bowl, and the inside of the bowl will be the smoother design that is usually seen on the underside of the piece. I will list all items I am using in the description box below. Please let me know what you think about this project in the comment box below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I am mixing the resin according to the directions on the bottles for 4 minutes. I am using Unicone Art resin. This resin has a thinner viscosity, which allows the bubbles to release naturally, easier. To mix my resin, I am using my Pixis resin mixer. I love this tool. It helps my hands not hurt when I mix, and I am able to get the sides and edges of my cup easily. Once my resin is mixed, I will start by creating my sand mixture. I didn't have enough brown sand, so I'm using some smaller rocks and some white sand. I will add a small amount of resin to this mix, just enough to make sure it is incorporated thoroughly. Next, I will start mixing the colors I would like to use for the water. I am using mica powders from the Hippie Crafter, and I will start with a light blue color. I added a little bit of resin to my cup, and then the full amount of powder. Once I get these blended and mixed, then I will add the remaining amount of resin. I love mixing this way because I can ensure the powder gets mixed thoroughly without making a giant mess everywhere. The second color I'll be using is a dark electric blue color. This is also from the Hippie Crafter, and I love how rich this color looks. Simply beautiful. I put out my resin mold thinking I was ready for it, but I forgot I needed to mix up my white color for the ocean foam waves. I am using a white paste from Colorberry. I added a couple squirts and mixed it with some resin. Now it is time for the mold. I start by adding my sand and rock mixture to the corners of this mold. In my first resin bowl, I did the sand in the center of the bowl, and you really couldn't see much of it. So I thought I would try putting it on the edges to see what would happen. Once I got my sand in place, I wanted to add some seashells to my beach. Since I don't live near a beach, I had to purchase them through my local Michael's Arts and Crafts store. I started placing them one by one Along the sand borderline, try to add a little variety as I go by placing large pieces next to smaller pieces. Once the seashells are in place, I will drizzle a very small amount of clear resin on top of the seashells to help act as the glue to keep them in place as my project is curing. Now I will start lacing my colors. I added the dark blue resin into the center and the light blue towards the sand line. I did swirl a little bit of light blue into the center so that it will blend with the dark blue as it cures. After I added the white to the border of the sand, I got out my heat gun and started heating up the resin. This is how the sea foam and the magic starts to happen. After I let the resin sit for a couple minutes, I added more white to the sand line and blended it with my heat gun. I kept adding more resin in areas that I thought needed it, adding in my final touches. This is looking so incredibly awesome. I am so excited. I am loving all of the visual effects of this piece, and I can't wait to see how it cures. Now I'll cover my project and let it sit for 6 hours before I do the next step. Okay, it has been 6 hours and my project is very firm and looks stunning. I am able to pull it out of the mold very easily. Even the underside of this piece looks interesting and awesome. I have my bowl that I purchased at the Dollar Tree in the party section. I will fold my project and try placing it in the bowl. This is where I start having some difficulties. My piece is very firm and is having a hard time settling into the bowl. Once I get it into the bowl, it simply does not want to stay. I flip the bowl upside down, thinking I can lay it that way. It is so firm, it just wants to be flat no matter what I do. I try again to push it down to see if it'll wrap itself around the bowl, but it is far too advanced in the curing process right now. 6 hours should be the perfect time to wait for this step with this resin, and I am thinking that because I added so much heat, I sped up the curing process. So now I decided to get out some of my glass vases to see if I can form my bowl around a smaller base. I definitely need something around the outer edges for weight to help push the edges down into a bowl shape, since gravity isn't helping me right now. I decided to use my extra glass vases as the weight to hold the sides down. This worked out well. I only had 3 glass vases, so I found 3 areas to place them, pushing them in as best as I could. I let them sit there to finish curing the remaining time left of the 24-hour cure time. Hi my friends! I went ahead and made another resin bowl, which I had so much fun. I love this. It has seashells and sand and waves, and it's got this crazy funky design. But as I looked at it after the 24 hours, I'm going to switch my camera. I'm going to show you what happened. Here's the inside, and let's see right here. Can you see it cracked? Let me show you a better view. And I've never had this happen. There it is right there. Look at that. Nice, healthy, chunky, thick break. And there's little baby ones throughout here. Here's a baby one right there. And I think I have an idea as to what happened. I'm going to share it with you, so let me know what you think. To begin with, I had my mold. I put the sand in the mold, so I think I used too much sand. I think that's my first boo-boo, because look how thick this is. This is easily a 1/4 inch thick. So I think that's my first problem, because with shaping something after it is in the curing mode, I think that, because it only cracked right up here. So that's my first thing. I think I used too much sand. My second thing is, when I was making the waves with all the white, I was using a lot of heat from the heat gun. So I think that made the resin start curing too fast. Look at that crack. So as this resin is curing, I waited the 6 hours, because that's with my resin. I'm using Unicone resin. My other bowls waited 6 hours, shaped them just fine. At the 6 hours, when I'm trying to put it into here to shape it, it was really hard to bend. It was like I was struggling. And I was thinking it's because I made it thicker. But I think it's because I sped up the curing process and it was more advanced into the curing process. So I think when I'm trying to shape this and put it in there, I'm creating stress and tension that by the time I got it in here and then gravity started pulling it down, I think that's where these happened. So let me know what you think, if that sounds reasonable. I still think this is really cool. I will post the video, my process video, soon. I need to edit it a little bit. But I'm thinking I can put some seashells in here. I can probably put some UV resin. You know, there's ways I can still save this. It's not a total scrap. I do love it. So let me know what you think. I appreciate your time. And I will talk to you soon. Bye. Okay, I let this resin bowl sit for a few days while I thought about how I wanted to fix the cracks. I decided the easiest way would be to take some UV resin to fill in the cracks to make them appear as minimal as possible. I marked the cracks with some painter's tape, and then I slowly started to fill in one of the cracks. I just added a small amount because I can always add more as needed. I let this cure under my lamp for 2 minutes, and I used the end of a paintbrush to check to see if it's cured and hard. I thought this did a great job, so I added some more to fill in the gap at the very edge of the bowl, repeating the process. It's working well, but I can see the crack and it bugged me. I decided I'd try adding some seashells to cover the cracks. But before adding the seashell, I thought I would make this edge a little more cleaner. So I added some of my resin with a paintbrush. I am using E6000 to glue the seashell in place. Since the E6000 glue takes a little bit of time to set, I added a strip of painter's tape over the seashell to keep it in place. Now it's time to tackle the next crack. I am adding the UV resin, letting it cure for 2 minutes, and then gluing a seashell in place to help cover the crack. For the third crack, it's a little larger of a crack, and I'm repeating the process with the UV resin. I did the inside of the bowl first, and for the outside, I thought I would see about adding a seashell into the crack. I was curious to see how that would look. Once I found the shell, I added the UV resin and let it cure for 2 minutes. I was pleasantly surprised at how well the UV resin was holding up. I had my doubts that the UV resin would work because the seashells are a very solid, opaque object, and the UV resin likes transparent colors and transparent objects in order to cure. Now I decided to dress up the seashell by adding the UV resin to some very small seashells. Once the seashells were covered, I placed them alongside of the larger seashell and let it cure under the lamp for 2 minutes. And then I tested it to make sure it was hard. Simply stunning! I went ahead and added seashells to the other side of the larger seashell just to finish the look. I am super excited this UV resin is working so well. I love the seashell pile I created, and it's giving me some ideas on how to finish the inside. For the seashells that I added the E6000, I went ahead and pulled the tape off and added some of the very small seashell mix with the UV resin around them. This will definitely help hold them in place, and it'll match with the theme that I am now creating. I keep adding more UV resin to the small seashells as needed, and I am taking my time placing the seashell mix into the piles on my bowl. As I am working, I am being very careful as to what I am touching to make sure I do not get too much resin on my gloves. If I do happen to get resin on my gloves and touch my bowl, I clean up as I go. I don't want any weird lumpy mistakes with the resin of my handling in this last step. This last step did take me just under 2 hours to complete. It was a lot of trial and error with the UV resin and just having fun and thinking about ways to design this piece around the cracks. I worked in very small sections and I let the sections cure for 2 minutes before starting the next section. I took the time to look around my bowl as I go and fixed any small details as I go. In one of my piles, I saw there was a weird, awkward gap. So I found a seashell that would fit, added some UV resin, and then let that cure. I ran out of the very small seashells, so I mixed up some of the rocks with the UV resin and added those around the larger seashells to make piles. I thought this looked so awesome, and I am loving the different effects this is creating. This piece is turning out so beautiful, but I keep thinking that my little seashell piles on the inside look out of place. I decided that I wanted to add a layer of rocks along the inside of the bowl to help connect all the small piles of the seashells. This did take me extra time, but it was well worth the final result. Look how awesome this is. I love the textures in this bowl on the outside and the inside. It is so interesting and it is fun to hold. Please let me know what you think about this project in the comment box below. Thank you for creating with me. I will see you in the next video. Bye!